10 times. That's how many doors Brian Epstein knocked on before the greatest band in the history of rock music got a record deal. 10 rejections. 10 people who listened to John Lennon and Paul McCartney writing songs in a room and said no. Some of them had their reasons. Some of them were just wrong. And one of them, sitting in a jazz lover's office in Los Angeles, passed on the Beatles not once, but 4 times in a single year. This is the story of every label, every executive, every producer who looked at the future of music and walked the other way. And I'm going to take you through every single one of them. There's a shadow hanging over me. Number 10, Walter Ridley, EMI HMV. Living is easy with eyes closed. Walter Ridley was a pianist turned producer. He worked out of EMI's HMV imprint. Strawberry feels forever. His master's voice, and his ear was shaped by years of working with balladeers, light orchestral music, the kind of sound that filled theaters and drew polite applause. When he heard the Beatles tape, he didn't hear the future. He heard a demo. And if you're being honest, and this is the part most biopics skip over, the demo wasn't spectacular. It was the Decca audition tape, recorded on New Year's Day, 1962 by 4 musicians who'd just driven 10 hours through a snowstorm in an unfamiliar studio with road-worn equipment nervously running through 15 songs for a producer nursing a New Year's hangover. Nothing is real. John Lennon himself said it didn't sound natural when he heard it played back. That's the tape Epstein was carrying. That's what got played for Ridley. So is it surprising he said no? Not entirely. But here's what is surprising. The same tape, that exact recording, is what eventually got played for George Martin. The same tape Martin would describe as sounding not very good. The same tape that Martin, out of a combination of pity for Epstein's obvious belief and genuine curiosity about the songwriting, said he'd give an hour of studio time. The difference between Ridley and Martin wasn't the tape. It was the willingness to look past what was on the tape and ask, what could this become? Ridley didn't ask. He heard what he heard and moved on to his next session. That is you can't, you know. And a Beatle fan was born probably that same day in some bedroom in Liverpool pressing their ear to a radio. Take you down, 'cause I'm going to. Some of y'all know that feeling, the one where you heard something for the first time and just knew it was different, even if you couldn't explain why. Those executives had that tape in their hands and felt nothing. I still don't know how. Number 9, Norman Newell, EMI. Norman Newell was EMI's 3rd producer. His specialty was show music musicals, light pop. He produced some of the most pleasant, inoffensive recordings in the EMI catalog. He was very good at his job. And he was the 3rd man in 3 weeks to pass on the Beatles. By this point, Brian Epstein has heard no from EMI's marketing channel, no from Norrie Paramore, and now no from Norman Newell. That's 3 rejections from the same company, 3 different producers, 3 different sensibilities, 3 different reasons, but the same answer. And here's what's worth sitting with for a second. EMI didn't say no because of one bad day or one wrong person. 3 independent professionals at the same company, each working in a different genre, each with their own taste, all arrived at the same conclusion. That tells you something about what the music industry actually thought a viable act sounded like in 1961. guitar groups, rock and roll, 4 young men from Liverpool with original songs and borrowed equipment. That wasn't a product in the eyes of the most established music company in Britain. That was a risk without a category. And this is where the story starts to get a little circular, because the 4th EMI producer, the only one who didn't hear the tape at this stage, was George Martin. The man who was about to change everything. Not because he was asked, because Epstein found a back door. We'll get to that back door later. It's a story involving a record shop on Oxford Street and a disc cutting machine. And the coincidence at the center of it is almost too good to be true. Almost. But that's for later.
Let's look at the numbers. Only 9% of you are actually subscribed. Honestly, that's tough to see. Our team spends days hunting down archives and verifying every single fact just to tell these stories right. If you've made it this far into the video, you're clearly part of the community, so please hit subscribe. It costs nothing and helps us immensely. Now, for those already subscribed, very few of you have made the jump to our membership, and that's a hard pill to swallow because you're the ones who know our value best. If this channel has moved you or inspired you, consider joining. It's the price of one coffee, but it's the literal fuel for this channel. Let's keep this alive together. Back to the story.
Number 8, Pie Records, early 1962. Pie Records wasn't a small operation. By 1962, it was the 3rd largest label in Britain. Petula Clark was on Pie. Lonnie Donegan was on Pie. They had genuine hits, genuine infrastructure, genuine A&R capability. If you were going to make it in British music and EMI said no, Pie was the next logical door. Epstein knocked on it, had a meeting with their executives, played the tape, and Pie said no. The meeting was reportedly quick. There wasn't a lot of deliberation. The Beatles weren't right for Pie, and Pie let Epstein know it without much ceremony. He walked out with the tape again and moved on to the next name on his list. But though they may be parted. Here's what I think about when I imagine that period. Epstein in the late winter of 1961 going into 1962, riding trains and sitting in waiting rooms and playing this tape for men in suits who couldn't hear what he heard. Let it be, let it be, let it be. He was near to tears at points, by some accounts. He genuinely believed in these 4 men in a way that none of the labels could understand, because none of them had seen the Cavern Club. There will be an answer, let it be. None of them had watched a crowd in Liverpool go completely still and then absolutely electric for the same act on the same night. The tape didn't capture that. No tape could. And that was the fundamental problem. The music industry in 1962 was making decisions based on recordings, not on the live experience. The Beatles were, at that moment, fundamentally a live band whose recordings didn't do them justice. And Epstein had to convince people with the recording. Pie couldn't see past it. Most people couldn't. One person eventually could, but they weren't there yet. And if you've ever tried to explain why something matters to someone who just doesn't get it, if you've ever watched the right person look at the right thing and feel absolutely nothing, you know what that month was like for Brian Epstein. Some of y'all have been in that room, you know. Number 7, Columbia Phillips Oriole, 1962. He didn't notice that the lights had changed. Andrew Loog Oldham, the man who would later manage the Rolling Stones, put it plainly in his autobiography. Everybody turned them down. Not most people, not the major labels, everybody. And 3 of those rejections came so fast and with so little explanation that they barely left a paper trail. And somebody spoke and I went into a dream. Columbia Records in Britain, not the American Columbia, a separate operation, passed. Philips Records passed.
4,000 holes in Blackburn, Lancashire.
Oriole Records, a small but credible label with real distribution, passed. All three made their decisions based on the same Decca audition tape that was circulating through London's A&R offices like a rumor nobody wanted to act on. Rolling Stones manager Oldham was blunt about it years later. They all heard what Decca heard, and they all reached the same conclusion Decca did.
The English army had just won the war.
And this is the part that still gets to me every time I think about it. By this point, we're talking about at least 7 or 8 separate rejections from different companies, different people, different musical sensibilities.
And grabbed my hat, made the bus in seconds flat.
The tape of the Decca audition is essentially functioning as a reference for what the Beatles are not. Every label passes it around.
They had to count them all.
Every label hears the same nervy performance, the same slightly stiff covers of Three Cool Cats and The Sheik of Araby, the same Pete Best drum parts that even the Beatles weren't entirely satisfied with.
A crowd of people stood and stared.
And nobody stops to ask, okay, but who wrote those 3 original songs on here? Who wrote Like Dreamers Do and Hello Little Girl? Who is sitting in that room with the potential to write songs that nobody has written before? Nobody asked that question. Not at Columbia, not at Philips, not at Oriole. One person would eventually ask it. And when he did, the world changed. Number 6, Decca and the New Year's Day audition.
Even how.
New Year's Day 1962. Neil Aspinall, the Beatles' road manager, 20 years old, drives them from Liverpool to London on New Year's Eve. They get lost. The trip takes 10 hours. They arrive at 10 o'clock at night, just in time to see the drunks jumping in the Trafalgar Square fountain, according to John Lennon. The next morning, they show up at Decca Studios in West Hampstead.
She woos me.
The producer assigned to them, Mike Smith, is nursing a New Year's hangover. The room is cold and unfamiliar. Their equipment, road-worn amps and guitars they've been gigging with every night at the Cavern Club, sounds different in a professional studio. Paul McCartney's amp is reportedly distorting so badly that engineers have to drag a replacement speaker in from the echo chamber. They record 15 songs in just under an hour. 3 of them are Lennon-McCartney originals. The rest are covers: Three Cool Cats, The Sheik of Araby, September in the Rain, material Epstein chose specifically to show the band's range.
You're asking me where my love grows.
Lennon later said the playback didn't sound natural. He could hear the nerves in it. Smith tells him he'll be in touch. The Beatles leave. On the street in central London, they run into Smith again later that day and reportedly greet him with what history records as a 2-finger salute.
I don't want to leave her now. You know I believe.
They didn't know yet that Smith was about to reject them. When the verdict came, it was delivered by Dick Rowe. And here's where the history gets genuinely complicated. Rowe later claimed, and maintained until his death in 1986, that it was actually Smith who made the call, that he told Smith to choose between the Beatles and Brian Poole and the Tremolos, who auditioned the same day, and Smith chose the Tremolos. Partly because they were from Essex and traveling expenses were lower. The greatest band of all time was passed over partly because of train fares. Rowe went to his grave as the man who turned down the Beatles. He denied saying guitar groups are on the way out, claimed Epstein invented the quote out of anger, but the story stuck. It always does when a mistake is that large. And whether Rowe said it or didn't say it, the rejection stood.
Something in the way.
Some people say Decca made the worst business decision in music history. Others say Smith's assessment wasn't entirely wrong given the performance that day. You probably know which side you're on. Number 5, Dick Rowe's redemption and George Harrison's tip. Here's what most people don't know about Dick Rowe. After the Beatles' rejection, he signed the Rolling Stones, the Animals, the Moody Blues, the Zombies, Van Morrison's Them, the Small Faces, Tom Jones. In the years after 1962, Rowe built one of the most impressive rosters in British rock history. And he did it partly because he was desperate to prove that the Decca decision wasn't who he was. But the strangest part of the story is how he found the Rolling Stones. George Harrison told him about them. Think about that. The Beatles, whose band had been rejected by Dick Rowe's label, goes out of his way to recommend another band to the same man. No spite, no payback. Just a genuine tip from one music lover to someone he thought could actually help.
One thing I can tell you is you got to be free.
Rowe went to see the Stones at the Crawdaddy Club in Richmond, and this time he said yes. He signed them on the spot. And here's the emotional reality underneath that story. Rowe could have spent the rest of his career bitter. He could have become the cautious man who never took another chance on an unknown act. Instead, the Decca rejection apparently made him more willing to trust his instincts. Or maybe just more willing to get off his chair and go see a live performance instead of judging everything from a tape. The irony is that the mistake is what saved his legacy. Without the Beatles' rejection, there's no pressure on him to find the next big thing. Without that pressure, maybe there's no Rolling Stones deal. Maybe the Moody Blues signed somewhere else. Being wrong about the Beatles might be what made Dick Rowe right about almost everyone else. That's a different kind of loss and a different kind of redemption. Number 4, Dave Dexter and Capitol Records, Rejection 1. Dave Dexter Jr. was born in Kansas City, Missouri in 1915. He started as a jazz journalist. He spent decades championing bebop and swing. He joined Capitol Records in 1943 and worked his way up to the A&R department, where he signed Frank Sinatra and Duke Ellington, artists he genuinely loved and understood. He was good at his job, for his specific job. The problem was that by 1962, Capitol Records was a subsidiary of EMI. And that meant Dexter, the one man assigned to screen all foreign EMI artists for American release, was the gatekeeper between the Beatles and the United States. And Dexter hated rock and roll. When Love Me Do landed on his desk in late 1962, he heard John Lennon playing harmonica on a pop single. He said it was the worst thing I ever heard. He rejected it without much deliberation. He dismissed the band as kids. He filed it away and moved on. Now, in his defense, no British rock act had ever had any sustained success in the United States. The American market had, to that point, been essentially impenetrable for British bands. Dexter had seen British pop records come and go without making a mark. He had historical evidence on his side. He wasn't wrong about the past. He was catastrophically wrong about what was coming. Emmy was furious. George Martin was furious. Epstein was furious. But Capitol had first refusal rights on all EMI product. If Dexter said no, the Beatles couldn't go to another American label until EMI terminated the agreement. and Dexter kept saying no. That's rejection number 1 from Capitol. There are 3 more coming. And if you've ever watched someone with institutional power make the same mistake over and over while the evidence piles up around them, you know how this feels to watch unfold. Number 3, Capitol rejects the Beatles 3 more times.
Here comes the sun, I say, it's alright.
In January 1963, Please Please Me hit number 1 in Britain. Dave Dexter passed on it for American release. In April 1963, From Me to You spent 7 weeks as number 1 in Britain. 7 weeks. A record at that moment for consecutive weeks at the top. Dexter passed on it.
Here comes the sun.
In August 1963, She Loves You was released. It went to number 1 in Britain and stayed there from September through December. 4 months at the top of the charts.
The sun. Here comes the sun.
It was the best-selling single in Britain that year. It would eventually become the best-selling Beatles single in the UK of all time. Dexter passed on it.
I feel that ice is slowly melting.
He reportedly laughed at the yeah, yeah, yeah refrain. He told Capitol's president they were nothing special. America wasn't ready for Beatle music. By this point, EMI was so frustrated that they terminated Capitol's first refusal agreement and started shopping Beatles records to any American label that would take them. Please Please Me went to VJ Records, a small R&B label based in Chicago. She Loves You ended up on Swan Records, a tiny label out of Philadelphia.
It's alright.
Both records charted modestly at best in America, with virtually no promotional support and almost no radio play.
The smiles returning to the faces.
The song that spent 4 months at number 1 in Britain sold roughly 1,000 copies in its initial American release. Meanwhile, across the country, there were American teenagers who already knew something was happening. Some of them were hearing pirate recordings. Some of them had older siblings who'd been to England. Some of them had heard the album on an import copy.
Little darling, it's been a long, cold.
And Dexter kept filing reports saying the group had no commercial potential in the U.S. It wasn't until EMI's head of the company, Sir Joseph Lockwood, personally intervened and forced Capitol's hand that Dexter finally released I Want to Hold Your Hand in America on December 26, 1963.
It feels like years since it's been here.
3 weeks later, it was number 1. By February 1964, the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan.
The sun. Here comes the sun.
And within 6 months, 5 Beatles songs simultaneously held the top 5 positions on the Billboard Hot 100. That had never happened before. That has never happened since. Dave Dexter. 4 rejections, the same act, the same year. I don't think he ever really understood what he'd heard. Number 2, George Martin, the Yes That Almost Wasn't. George Martin in 1962 was the head of Parlophone Records, a small imprint within EMI. He'd made his name producing comedy albums. Peter Sellers, Spike Milligan. He had a reputation for being smart and creative, but he wasn't an obvious choice for rock and roll. He wasn't Norrie Paramore. He wasn't a pop specialist. When Epstein's tape finally reached him, through a chain of lucky accidents that started with a disc-cutting machine in an HMV record shop, Martin's first reaction was honest. There was something there. He wasn't sure if it was worthwhile. He told Epstein, "If you want me to judge them on what you're playing me, I'm sorry, I'll have to turn you down." And then he gave Epstein a lifeline. He said, "Bring them from Liverpool. I'll give them an hour in the studio." On June 6, 1962, the Beatles walked into Studio 2 at Abbey Road. Martin sat in the control room, and the session was, by most accounts, not great. Paul McCartney's amp was distorting badly. Their original songs weren't fully developed. Martin gave them a long lecture on their shortcomings. He was particularly critical of Pete Best's drumming. And then he asked, "Is there anything you don't like?" George Harrison looked at him and said, "Well, for a start, I don't like your tie." Martin started laughing. The whole atmosphere shifted. Something cracked open in that room, and Martin felt it. He came away satisfied with nearly everything, except Best's drumming. He told Epstein he'd offer them a singles contract, but Best would not play on the records. Martin had been burned once with Best. He wasn't doing it again. By August, Pete Best was out. Ringo Starr was in. And on October 5, 1962, almost a full year after Epstein walked into EMI's marketing department and got his first no, Love Me Do was released on Parlophone. It reached number 17 in Britain. Modest, promising. 3 months later, Please Please Me hit number 1. And the rest of it you already know, because you were there for it, or you discovered it later. And either way, it became part of the music you carry with you. The songs that live in the part of your brain that doesn't think about them. They're just there, the way certain memories are just there. Number 1, the HMV Store and the Chain of Luck That Changed Music.
I'm not half the man I used to be.
January 1962, Epstein has the Decca tape. He's been rejected by everyone. He's running out of labels, running out of options, running low on hope.
Place to hide away. Oh, I believe.
He goes to the HMV Store on Oxford Street in London. He has the Decca reel-to-reel tapes converted to acetate discs at the in-house disc pressing machine. He's doing it because he needs a more portable format to keep playing to people. An engineer at the store named Foy is cutting the disc.
I said something wrong.
Foy listens while he works. He's struck by the original Lennon McCartney songs on the tape. He mentions them to his manager.
Yesterday.
His manager tells Epstein he should contact Sid Coleman, who runs a music publishing subsidiary called Ardmore and Beechwood.
Though they're here to stay, oh, I believe.
A branch of MI. Epstein goes to see Coleman. Coleman listens. And Coleman, who is a publisher, not a label man, here's something in those original songs that nobody at a record company had stopped to notice.
And yesterday, why she...
He picks up the phone and calls George Martin. Not because Martin is Epstein's best option. Not because Epstein had orchestrated a grand plan. Because a disc-cutting machine was in the right shop, an engineer happened to be paying attention. And one conversation led to another.
Why she had to go.
That's the chain. That's how thin it was. One distracted engineer and none of this happens. Foy doesn't comment on the songs. Coleman never gets the call. Martin never hears the tape.
Wouldn't say, I said.
And the Beatles, who by this point have been rejected by at least 9 separate labels and producers, run out of runway. I didn't know this until I started digging into it. And that part still gets me. All of it.
Oh, yesterday came suddenly.
Beatlemania, the British invasion, the entire canon of what we call rock music in the modern era, balanced on a moment in a record shop on Oxford Street where one man listened while he worked and thought, those songs are something. 12 rejections, 12 people who heard it and walked away, one engineer who didn't.
Oh, I believe in yesterday.